welcome, folks, to the Art of Advocacy. I'm your host, Dr. Shelton L. Eakins, host of the Leading Equity Podcast, founder of the Leading Equity Center. But you already knew that already. By the way, if this is your first time, so if you didn't know this, and if this is your first time, please subscribe to the show, to the YouTube channel. Follow your boy. I appreciate all the love. This is going to be a great episode today. As always, I'm really excited about today's guest. Now, today's show sponsored by Leading Equity, becoming an advocate for all students. That's right, becoming an advocate for all students, now available. You can grab your copy online on Amazon, or you can even pick it up on the website, leadingequitycenter.com. I also want to bring to your attention, let me see if I can pull this up here. Oh, that worked, sort of. Let's try it this way. There we go, a little bit better there. Today, I want to bring to your attention, we have a very special event happening January 19th through the 21st. It is called Amplifying Student Voices. If you're one of those individuals who's an educator out there and you're looking to create opportunities for your students to be able to advocate for themselves, you know, it's one thing for us as educators to speak up and support our students, especially when our students come to us and ask us for help, especially when they're dealing with challenges at school and their daily lives as well. But what happens when we're not around? Kids are smart these days. These kids will do things on the playground and in the lunchroom when there's no adults around. And so if you're looking to create opportunities for your students to learn how to advocate for themselves, we have this cool event January 19th, 20th, and 21st, in which you will learn all the strategies that we utilize at the Leading Equity Center to support student affinity groups. So this is available. You can go to leadingequitycenter.com and find out that information. Now, as always, we definitely do appreciate you and your support. So again, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. We're going to be talking today with Mr. Charles K. Jr. Charles K. Jr. is a first-generation Thai American born artist, and he has a story that he's going to share with us, and he's going to share it through art as well. So we'll get into that. By the way, feel free to say hello, those who are out there, as we get ready to bring on Charles. Say hello, where you're from, where you're watching from, if you're an educator, if you're an artist, if you're a supporter of Charles, if you're a supporter of the Leading Equity, the Art of Advocacy show, any of those things, feel free to say hello. We're going to get started. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my very special guest, Mr. Charles K. Jr. Welcome, Charles. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you, Sheldon?
Listen, I can't complain. It is Thursday evening. This is live stream time. I look forward to this every week, so I'm excited.
That's great. I was a little scared, to get on live with someone as good looking as yourself. I thought, all right, here we go.
I'm trying to get to your level, man. You got the fresh cut and everything, the shade. I'm trying to be like you. It looks like I see Abir's on here as well. So shout out to Abir. She's the one that actually connected the two of us. So shout out to Abir. Thank you for joining us. Now, Charles, I just read one sentence of your bio. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about yourself and what you currently do.
Yeah. So I'm an artist. I'm a photographer, a filmmaker. I live in Omaha, Nebraska. I have been doing work collaboratively with Lori Victor Kay for over 26 years. And this opportunity to present work at the Kaneko is my first chance to share a story that's very personal to an audience that I don't know. It's a lot of people who will just come into the museum and tour the space and learn a little bit about where I come from, what my family's story is, what that migration was like, and how growing up in Middle America in the 1970s definitely affected the way I saw the world and this country and myself.
Well, I'm glad to have you on. This is an honor. This is a pleasure to have you. Now, I want to hear your story, and we'll bring up some of your art as well. And folks, I'm gonna drop the the link. Now, we don't want you to leave. We don't want you to leave, folks. So here is Charles' website, charleskjr.com. So if you want to learn more about his work and his other things that he has available, feel free to check that out after. That's right, after the show is over. But Charles, start where you want to start. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was, like I said, I was born in the 1970s, in 1970 in Omaha to Thai immigrants. And my parents made their way from the East Coast, and they stopped in Omaha because they knew that things might be affordable here. And they looked into it, and sure enough, going to finish their college degrees. And they were both educators. My parents were both teachers. They taught mathematics. And my dad, our original last name was Komatang, which is very Thai. But his students at the Catholic school that he taught at couldn't pronounce it. So they called him Mr. K. And what happened over time, as my parents continued to work and be, trying to establish some sort of a business practice or something here in Omaha, they knew that they wanted to get a lease to have a camera shop, and they needed a loan as well. And I think they considered their last name they thought about what was happening just after the Vietnam War and how an Asian sounding last name may be a barrier for them to getting access to funds and a way to start their business. So they changed the name in 1974 to K, K-A-Y. And that's sort of, I was too young to really fully understand it. I think I remember it somewhat, but then the next day I had a different name, and I thought that was quite interesting.
So they didn't. So initially, because people couldn't pronounce his name, pronounce Kamate, he shortened it to K, but not the letter K. So it's K-A-Y.
Right. And I personally now I'm like, we should have just done the letter K. Why not? It would have been nice. So, but it's one of those things they chose to have some form that you could write it down, you could see it, etc. But they, we in our house, we just kind of let that name go. We never even brought it up again, which is super interesting to me.
So I see you're a junior. Is Charles your birth name as well?
Charles, well, my birth name would have been Charas, like my father, because I was a junior. So when he changed his name, they changed my name as well, which was sort of one of those things. I don't remember either, but I asked my mom about that recently, and she said, yes, we changed your name when we changed our name because you're a junior. And I thought, okay, yeah.
Interesting. This is interesting. Okay, let's talk about school.
Yeah.
Let's talk back. Let's think back to elementary days. Now, I want to ask you. Is English your first language? Was there another home language that was spoken?
Yes, our English. Well, for my older sister, Thai was her first language, and she would get words confused, and she just became very quiet. So, and she would get teased. So my parents chose to change our name, or change not just the name, but also how we were brought up. Change that. Become American, speak English, don't use the native tongue, and we're not gonna teach it to you any further. They really didn't want us to stand out in a negative way, and at that time, really having a language that was so foreign sounding definitely would have separated us. My sister basically stopped talking at a point when she mixed up words when she was in school. So they recognized that and said, okay, we're not doing that any longer.
Okay.
Which makes it hard. We have family who only speaks Thai when we go visit them. And that common thing that my children know how to pronounce and my wife knows how to pronounce is Put Thai or Kon Thai, Put Thai Mai Dai, which is I'm Thai, but I don't speak it. And I mean, it's kind of embarrassing when you're in your parents' homeland and your relatives are looking at you saying, why?
Do you feel like you have some challenges fitting in then? And maybe you're not Thai enough. That mindset is kind of presented to you in those kind of, like when you're at
I
home.
mean, I think like, I think what was sort of hard was you wanted to be different. I wanted to be blonde and white. I didn't want to be brown. In particular, my sister even brought this up recently. She has a memory of being in the mall in Omaha and being teased, and people making some Asian sounding words at you and remarks, and then grabbing their eyes and pulling them up. And you just thought, okay. And we're both in our 50s, and that's kind of an odd thing to have that burn memory in your system that, wow, I mean, people are mean. And just because the way you look, people automatically think they have a way to treat you. Um, and I think for us, we would recognize that we were brought up to be very, very, very quiet, to stay unnoticed, to stay out of the way. And that's sort of how we were raised. Don't challenge, don't make a loud voice, just work hard.
So work hard, keep your head down, don't challenge anything.
Yeah.
Do you believe that created, I guess at some point you've kind of shifted, your mindset has changed since that. Can I ask, was there like a pivotal moment that you're like, you know what?
Yeah, I can tell you that pivotal moment was there was probably a few parts that started it. One was having two children, having our kids Miles and Evie, and they are 23 and 21 now, but recognizing that even though Lori is blonde and green eyed, that they did not have those features. So that was one part in the early things of saying, okay, I have children who are not, they don't look white, they're not white passing. And I'm going to make sure that they are not treated differently, as much as I could as a parent, but also that I want them to know, be proud of your skin color, be proud of your eye shape, be proud of your heritage. But in particular, during COVID, just all the hate rhetoric around Asians, around a virus, that pretty much was it. That was the sounding bell. And seeing, Asian hate crimes, and there was that Thai grandfather, 80 plus years old, who's pushed to his death in San Francisco. That was it. I had enough at that point. And I just didn't want people to look at others and feel like they could judge them or treat them away because they had a preconceived notion because of the rhetoric being spilled by one party about where this virus came from.
I can't even imagine. And it sucks. Just I've had a lot of my Asian friends have mentioned, they're not even Chinese, and they're like, they just grouped everybody all together. We all looked alike to them, and we got mistreated. And I can't even imagine what type of like conversations, maybe if you mind sharing, that you were having with your children as they're going to school and kind of dealing with these kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big part was, to one of our kids' favorite books, they would bring it home all the time in elementary school, and I loved reading it to them, was My Skin is Brown. And it was a book all about people of color, and it was a very, very sweet book. And it was like, my skin is brown, dark and brown like chocolate. I just loved that process of that book, and each page was a different shade of brown. And I remember it was so fun that they would bring it home and would want it read to them, because it was one book in this public library that they had that gave them a connection to themselves. They saw themselves in it. So it's those types of things. And even like, for Lori to be asked at the supermarket, where did you get your children? That's That's crazy, right? Like,
Really?
yeah, just like, all right, I don't know, at the hospital, out of my, just, yeah, just all of a sudden they popped out, and wow, okay,
That
but
is so interesting. So how does she respond? I'm curious. How does she respond to
I
that?
mean,
That's
I would tell you, I think Lori would just basically look at them and say, "These are my children."
yeah.
They're mine. And even if you think about that part of a protective parental nature of things, you're just like, really? Like,
Yeah.
okay. Um, and in a large part of the story, that the way the installation's set up when you come into this exhibit is is a bit of a migration for people. It's a journey.
Mhm.
And what I want you to do is take this in. So you'll sit in these videos are going, and there's a panel, a wall with 3 bars of text on it. And that sort of gives you a paraphrase idea of where I want, where I'm coming from, what the beginning or this front part of this exhibition is about, and how as a viewer you can start to get grounded into that space. There's a line in here, and I talk about, was it a dream? And I say yes. I think it was the American dream,
Mm.
and I feel like for any family that has traveled to this country to make it a new home, they want to be accepted. They want to form an American, structure on the outside, and try to push that visual to people, try to assimilate. And that's a lot what this whole process is. So when you come into this scene, there's loud ocean waves sound filling this gallery, and the projection's moving, and it's all black and white. And I think it slows people down. The idea for me is to let you feel something, let you understand what it's like not to be seen. It's a dark space, and the only thing around that you are having are these projections. So when you walk through, even if there's more than a few people in here, they all sort of disappear into the projection or into the shadow, into the space. And I find that it's kind of nice not to let people experience what this is like. And the room is so dark.
Yeah, I see that. And now this is available in Nebraska, right? Omaha.
Currently in Nebraska, yes. I mean, Abir, who's on, is one of my very, very close allies in saying, let's get this elsewhere. So I just
Mhm.
visited with her in DC, and
Okay.
we're hoping that we can get it moved to other institutions. There's discussion with several, and just continuing to get people to have interest. It's great if they see it and they come to Omaha to see it.
Mhm.
So I'm going to say this: if you're a curator in a museum and you have calendar space open or cultural center, we'll find a way to get you to Omaha to see this show. It just got extended, Sheldon, so it's going to be up until the end of April, which is great. It was originally closing February 5th, but there's been a lot of people that want to come see this. They want to return to it. They want to keep connected to this exhibit. So we are hoping that it can move to other venues and other places, in particular where there are more immigrant populations. Not that Nebraska doesn't have that, but there's definitely more people that could use a show like this on coastlines or even in Houston, et cetera. But we're trying to make that work.
I love this. This is beautiful, and again,
Thank you.
it's telling your story as well. And so, folks, his information is down there at the bottom. So again, after this is over, if you're a curator and you want to reach out and connect, feel free to reach out to Charles. I have to ask, what got you what got you passionate? Like I can just went through a few slides already.
Right.
But what got you so passionate about this artwork, and why did you feel like you needed to express yourself in this way?
Yeah, and when I give tours in the space, and I'm talking about it, I tell people this started with a conversation. So the executive director of Connectgo is Stefan Grote. And we had a conversation in October of 2021 about a piece that I had in another gallery. And that conversation led to me being able to show more work and give him an idea of what I'd like to do if I could have an exhibition space. And about, by the beginning of the year in January, he gave me the green light that I would have a show. And that I say that started my sleepless nights of my brain working and just wanting to shoot and do things, but not necessarily completely connecting all the dots with where the story would go. But once I got further into it and I saw the video, I read an incredible book that Miles and Evie had recommended that is called Crying in H Mart. And that book pretty much, I think, was one of the factors that gave me courage to tell a story like this and to be so personal and to be so vulnerable. And it's about a Korean daughter, first generation born here, and her about taking care of her mom. It's a great book. And the Michelle Zahner is the author. She's also the lead singer in Japanese Breakfast. So look it up, look her up, and read the book. It's incredible. But kind of being able to put together a story once I got into the exhibit space and place the projections up and write this artist statement, I really, really, really started getting deep and connecting with what is it that I'm feeling? Why are these feelings coming to the surface? And how is sharing the story going to enhance a viewer's perspective on the show and connect with the work? So I'll tell you, when you keep showing the images, you start seeing that feeling because you go through a video and you can sit in that for hours. It is mesmerizing. I'll bring you to Omaha. You got to come see it. When a beer's here, we'll have you come back and maybe we'll do something together. But the sound is filling the whole space. So you have to imagine, Sheldon, you're hearing water and ocean the whole time over you through the video. And then you walk through, there are 7 panels of images. 2 of the 7 are diptychs, so like you'll see on the right here, that's a piece that's would be moved together. It's a vertical image. All of the images are named after rivers in Thailand. So even though this whole show that I shot is done in Cardiff by the Sea, California, so North San Diego County is where I shot everything. I wanted to name all the pieces after rivers in Thailand. I wanted that transformative, connected process that, for me, that would help bond the work to the story. So the rivers in Thailand, what do? They provide transportation, livelihood, and food to the Thai people. So they're very important. This slide that you're on is kind of what we talked about. Mm-hmm. It's about my parents and the name change. And I mean, even my own family recognizing the story and thinking about it. And as my friends have told me, people could say Beethoven, they could say Tchaikovsky, but why couldn't they say Komatang? How hard was that? Mm-hmm. And it's like a line from a beer when she was touring it with me and going through it. And it's something that, I think it was the reason I didn't push it away. And is because I just knew my parents wanted us to assimilate. They wanted us to be part of that. So much so that, I've had to apologize to my own mother to say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was embarrassed about your accent. I'm sorry that, I was embarrassed about the smells from our kitchen being so different. And I'm sorry, I just couldn't recognize who we were and appreciate and totally embrace that part. Because, growing up in this area, I just felt like I wanted not to look different. I wanted not to sound different. I wanted just to be part of this fabric of white society realistically, which was which is sad. And not that white society is a bad thing. It's just, if you're brown, you don't need to do that. You need to appreciate who you are. So a lot of people connect with this, whether you're an immigrant, whether you're, in the LGBTQ community, whether you're just a wallflower, just unseen, just not noticed. That's what this story is for. And that's what this exhibit is made for. And it's heavy. When you get to this part, I'm going to tell you, most people, they don't know how they are absorbing what their own families may have gone through. They're absorbing what maybe they have even done, or how they have reacted and how they've treated people, or just how they've been treated and how they're not viewed as the norm in society. So you get this wall, and then there's 3 20-gauge steel panels that you'll see that are like this rusted steel that are on this, maybe on one of these slides. We ask a question on the wall: what makes you feel seen? So these are heated panels, and the instructions for people would be: approach the wall, put your hands in the center, and close your eyes. And ask that question: what makes you feel seen? So something about these panels, they're steel, they're rusted looking. You don't expect this. They're heated, they're warm. I have a small filament behind them that's warming these panels to 90 plus degrees. So when people are putting their hands on something, they are first taken aback. They didn't realize it was going to be like this. Just like I tell people, just like people you don't recognize or you don't know, you have a natural instinct or a way you think they're going to be. Like you think steel will be cold, so I'm warming it. I'm giving you something you're not used to, and I'm telling you to now exhale, close your eyes, and think, what makes you feel seen? And when that answer comes to you, in the instructions it says, say it to yourself, say it out loud, write it on the wall.
Wow.
And as they write it, it almost disappears as they're writing it because of that heated panel. So it's twofold. And it's sort of, I hope, and I tell people, that's my way of giving you a virtual hug. I can't be there to do this, but that's my way of doing it for you, right? So, and I can tell you this, I have several people that will message me on social media and they'll say, hey, I don't know. Or one person recently said, I finally figured it out. I've been to your exhibit 5 times and I did not know what to write. I stand there with my hands on the wall. I don't know what to write. And she responded recently, recognition. That's what would make me feel seen. And I'll tell you, it's heavy, but I love this. I love the story that I get from people. I'm journaling all the time about it. So it's amazing what people will share. I'm very humbled by how people react and how they attach themselves to the story.
That right there, it sounds so powerful, and I'm just like blown because like I'm okay. I'm not the most artistic person, and so but still, like, just the whole concept of how like you've explained how when you first walk in, there's the water, and then it's really dark in there. Then it kind of starts with telling your story with those various panels, kind of like your your bio, if you will. And then it goes into those pictures of your family. And then you go into this wall where it says, what makes you feel seen? Right. I love how that connects together, all, how it all ties in. I could see this being powerful, not just for those who are, immigrants, but also just for, like you said, folks who might have been born in the United States, to be able to see this. And now, is it chalk that they're utilizing on here?
No, so I sealed, after we rusted the panels, I sealed the panels, and then I used another spray barrier so when you write on it, you're painting on it with water, distilled water, actually. And they're large brushes. My daughter Evie is an artist as well, and so she's always like, use this, use that. You need to have a bristle like this, because we wanted you to be able to read what you wrote, have it legible, or people just will do art on it also. So it isn't just, and I should say this, if you're an adult or a teenager, or there's different instructions based on the age group. So if you're 3 to 12 years old, my instructions are: come to the wall, place your hands on it, close your eyes, imagine your inner superhero, draw your superhero suit and yourself on the wall, and I say, you matter, your story matters, I see you. So, if you're younger, I want to at least give them some fun way of recognizing they have strength inside. And if you're a teenager, it's completely different. I talk about being understood. And so we have different ways of programming it for different age groups as well. But at the end, I think the bottom line is what would make that person, that individual, feel seen.
I'm gonna pull this up again. This is awesome. Again, this is I just, again, with the work that I do, I'm thinking about teachers bringing, field trips to, Omaha, doing field trips here, going to the exhibit, and identity conversations can be brought up. All of
Right.
it.
I mean, hands down. I mean, you think about it, like, and because of the extension to the end of April, I hope you get educators that you can come in and speak to, and it would be incredible to lead in that space. Connectgo is wonderful when it comes to collaboration and programming and being able to connect art to a community and to people in a way that helps them understand themselves as well as the art in the room. That's a very interesting way to do it. And I think in this case, for me, it was something unexpected, but with such rewarding return on that hard work, to see how people feel that their story can be told through mine, and that it matters. I have so many people that come up to me that will say, Charles, I'm an immigrant, and your story I can relate to. I remember all these parts, and down to the name part. When people get to the name part, they're just like, what? I mean, I think it's rare that people change their names anymore, but just at that time, that's what happened. And the amount of times people will come up to me and say, we were from Canada, my grandparents are Jewish, or we're Jewish. They could not go to med school there. They had to come to America, change their name, go to med school in Louisiana. I was like, what? And one person's like, my grandmother, we learned that we called her Barbara, but that wasn't her name. She had to change her name because it was too different. And I just thought, oh my goodness, and sure, she's been 2 generations removed from that, and she's crying. She's just telling me, I didn't understand it all. I do now. And I think that's really touching. But, if you have students, if you have educators just trying to understand how important using that real name of that individual is, not shortening it, not changing it, making an effort to learn how to pronounce it, making an effort to make that student's story valuable in the process of the education. Both my parents were teachers, as I said. My mom in public schools and parochial as well, but mainly public. And my dad, he was a vice principal at a parochial school. And of course, he couldn't be principal because he was Buddhist,
Mm-hmm.
And then he went off to another school and became a high school principal before starting his business. So kind of watching that process and thinking about how they had to go through things, they with those thick accents, teaching mathematics, all those things. And even then, watching them be teased by students or something else, it's just like, man,
That's too bad, man.
that happens. I mean, it's ignorance in a way. And I'm hoping, I have great hope that we see people, as human beings, as part of why our cultures are so wonderful here, and why people want to come to this country.
Well, I like this. This angle here looks, again, I can see the I guess the paint residue,
Yeah, it's
here.
just that chalky film that comes off of the water. And I'll tell you, those black podiums, something I didn't talk about with those are CNC 3D sculptures of the imagery. So this is a multi-sensory show. I wanted people who also had visual impairment to be able to understand what the work is like by feeling it, right? You have that great sound in that ocean, so you can get that sense. But then also walking up to a piece and actually being able to put your hands on it and touch it. And there's 4 of those in the space. And that was something that was important to me as well. I wanted this show to be accessible.
Oh boy. What makes you feel seen? Yep.
Yeah, you're going to have to come to Omaha and write it on the wall. Something also on this panel, Sheldon, having an opportunity like this, I'm so appreciative for. Having Stefan Grote say, hey, you got your chance, go create the work. And so many people I learned in the Kaneko space, they often find themselves unseen or in the shadows, where they're like the best supporting cast to everything. So something a little bit different for me was to be able to thank those people and thank the viewers and thank people for seeing all of us in this setting.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's a question I have. I mean, based off of your experience, growing up, maybe we can go back to your parents' experience in the United States and all of that, and your educational experience, and you're raising your kids, and this even as an exhibit, thinking about teachers and educators. That's my primary audience.
Right.
Are there any strategies or tips that you would want to kind of leave folks with, just again based off of your personal experience, some things that that you would want to kind of leave nuggets, if you will, for our educators that are watching?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it earlier. I think the importance of learning how that first part, how to address your student, how to use their name, and how to think about how their story, their heritage could also help give other students a view into a different world or a different culture, a different country. I find that very important. We can't just think that they don't matter. The world is much larger than the United States, right? So I am hoping that if you're an educator and that you have a compassionate drive and you have a drive to watch people grow and learn, that you continue to find ways to engage all students, to engage even that cross connection of different cultures together. So, some people would never experience certain foods or language or something. Maybe bring that together. I think it's important. I think it's important for students that are immigrants to be able to share their story and to be able to be heard and be seen. Too often, as I stated, this show is emerging from the currents of assimilation. I mean, that is, don't put people into a box.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't put people into a box. And I talk about that in my book, actually, the power of names. And I've had several episodes about that because, as you mentioned, we can say Tchaikovsky and Beethoven, all those names, Timothy Chalamet and all these, like we can say these names.
Right.
But again, especially like I live in Idaho, so I hear it all the time. This is America. Your name is such and such. I'm not going to call you that. Like they say that stuff. And I don't know if they do that in Nebraska, but like that's kind of the mindset that I've seen a lot of like educators have when it comes to students. Oh, it's just too hard to pronounce. And so I have a whole chapter talking about getting to know your students, and that's where we start.
Well, I mean, you think about it, even talking to students, because you don't look like they're normal, you already have a lot of other assumptions. And maybe because they are English as a second language, now you're really using a different thought process. Well, they can't be in the gifted and talented program because English isn't their first language. Even though they're brilliant, why would you, I mean, I hear stories from parents all the time who have said, I had to be the voice. I had to be the advocate. One of our friends who we just spent a lot of time with, another artist named Ron Norsworthy, said he grew up in middle America, and his school, his mom, both parents have their master's degrees, and his mom is saying, why is he in remedial English? And they just were like, well, we didn't think he understood the context, because he's the one Black student in a white school. Okay. Well, that's really, I mean, his mom had to be his voice. His mom had to be the advocate, right? Like his mom had to say, no, And of course, Ron went to Princeton. So, I mean, it just was like, all right. I mean, it's just one of those things. You just can't, it's like that wall, Sheldon. What you think it's going to be is nothing at all like that. You would never anticipate a 4-foot by 10-foot rusted steel wall to give you warmth, to give you some sort of, understanding, to draw something out of you, to answer a question.
Whoo, bro, that is powerful. You blowing my mind. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, Charles, and again, shout out to the beer for connecting the two of us.
Yeah.
And hopefully I can get to Omaha before April, and be able to have an opportunity to check out the exhibit myself in person. But those who are in the area, please check it out. And again, curators, feel free to reach out. If we have some folks that want to connect with you beyond your website, what are some of your suggestions as far as getting in touch?
Well, generally, I just say if you use my Instagram, because in Connecto, I have it connected. It's at Charles K. Jr. on Instagram. So I check messages there. I respond to people. And like I said, I have a lot of people who will send me their story there, which I think it's a great way for me to know that this work moved you, that you connected with it, that you have a story to share with me as well. I think that's really nice.
Okay. Charles, it's been a pleasure. Thank you again for your time. Thank you very much. I have learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Come to Omaha.
Take care.
Okay.
Well, folks, that was Charles K. Jr. Oh man, I got to come to Omaha. Like I guess I had no choice at this point. It was great talking to him, learning about his story, and he made it accessible. His exhibit is accessible for those who are hearing impaired, or there's the visual pieces. There's all these elements that are within this concept, and it to me, my biggest takeaway from this conversation was it all boils down to, again, relationship building and the power of names. We sometimes take that for granted, especially in the United States. If you have the common name that a lot of folks are used to hearing, but if you don't have that name, and how there's a lot of assimilation that happens for a lot of our immigrants, right, that are coming in, they're changing their names to try to fit in. And I really like Charles' message about, I'm very proud of who I am. And so this is not necessarily something I want to continue to do. And this is something I want to be an example for my own children. And so I think all of that was very powerful. I have thoroughly enjoyed today's conversation. As we wrap things up, I always want to leave us with my favorite quote of all times, Dr. Martin Luther King says, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving. Let's continue to be a voice in leading equity.